I'm Abby, I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the series where once a week I sit down and just talk about albums that I love. If 20-minute deep dive episodes or, oh my god, however long this video is gonna be, if those aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds here on my channel as well as my Instagram. So this week's record is a heavy hitter. I was like freaking out when I saw it was coming up in my schedule. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this, but here we are, trucking along anyway. This week's record is Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. Congrats to those who guessed it. If you want a hint at what next week's record is going to be, all you have to do is keep an eye on my community tab. I post hints over there, I post polls, memes, all sorts of fun stuff like that. All right, so let's take the plastic off. So my copy is a repress. I'm almost sure it is a repress in some way, shape, or form. And oh my god, there is so much art in this thing. We have a die-cut sleeve right here, accommodated to fit a double album. This is really interesting. You don't often see double albums in a single sleeve, but I suppose when your past 4 releases have all been in gatefold sleeves, you might get sick of it, so Zeppelin opted for this instead. Right in the front, you'll see the album title spelled out in the windows. Or are they? I'm sure B-roll Abby will show this to you better than I ever could, but see, I was right, this is stuck. This is actually your insert with the track listing. Folds down like this. Side 1 and 2 are upright this way. Sides 3 and 4 are on the reverse. And right along here is where you'll find the liner notes. On the inner sleeves, we've got even more art, even more windows. I love that this album art is so customizable. You can kind of pick and choose who you want to be in these windows, depending on which sleeve you've got in front and if it's forwards or backwards. In the windows, you've got photos of Zeppelin, there's Buzz Aldrin in here, Liz Taylor as Cleopatra. I gotta say, I'm surprised that Aleister Crowley is on Sgt. Pepper's and not in this little who's who photo collage. I mean, I do also totally understand the Jimmy Page is a devil worshipper rumors had only just quelled when this album came out, so now that I think of it, yeah, I don't blame Zeppelin at all for omitting him from here. This mega sleeve features photography from Elliot Erwitt as well as friend of the band Roy Harper. The building is St. Mark's Place in the East Village of New York City, and Trevin has actually been there before. If I can get him to send me his photo of this building, I will absolutely include it in this video. The design of this jacket was by Mike Dode and Peter Coriston. The coloring by Maurice Tate, who is credited on these liner notes as, quote, tinting extraordinaire. And the illustration was done by Dave Hefferman. A quick side note about these inner sleeves before I put my jacket back together. I have my static free sleeves inside of these sleeves. I feel like these are going to be a little better on my records. However, I don't just want to not utilize these entirely. They're too cool. Yeah, boo-hoo, I store my records inside the sleeve. Go cry about it. On Physical Graffiti, we have Robert Plant on vocals, Jimmy Page on guitar, John Paul Jones on bass, keys, and mandolin, as well as some acoustic guitar, and John Bonham on drums. This record was produced by Jimmy Page, with the band's manager Peter Grant serving as executive producer. We have a whole team of audio engineers on this thing. We have Andy Johns, We've got Eddie Kramer, who we know from working with Jimi Hendrix, Ron Nevison, who engineered The Who's Quadrophenia, and Keith Harwood, who would engineer the Stones' Black and Blue, along with the Johns brothers. This is like the third episode in a row that we've somehow mentioned Glyn Johns. I love this for me. Special guests also include Ian Stewart, founding member of the Rolling Stones. He plays the piano on the aptly named Boogie with Stu. Alright, so, I need to catch my breath before this because we're about to delve headlong into the odyssey of physical graffiti. The production of this record was very scattered, and here's why. Houses of the Holy, released March of '73. Zeppelin immediately tours to support this album, and once that tour has concluded, they retire to Headley Grange, where they recorded a good chunk of Zeppelin 4. They also utilized Ronnie Lane's mobile studio. Not much of any note came out of these sessions except for an early cut of Kashmir. Yeah, recording came to a halt pretty quickly. John Paul Jones was exhausted, both physically from the grueling touring schedule, as well as mentally from, for lack of a better term, dealing with the other guys' shit. JPJ considers quitting, but Peter Grant convinces him to stay and gives him the rest of '73 off. The guys reconvene at Headley Grange in the beginning of '74 to start, honest to goodness, hammering out the material for physical graffiti. Now, these sessions were very productive. Actually, too productive? Yeah, they ended up with more material than a single album, but less material than a double album. Now, this put Zeppelin in an interesting position. Either they had to drop a bunch of songs that they really, really liked, or load the thing up with filler to bolster their good material. What if I told you there was a third option? Now, when you're running as big an operation as Vinyl Monday, or I guess Led Zeppelin, you learn a cardinal rule of production. That rule is streamline things as much as possible. Use your resources. Led Zeppelin's resources were a bunch of songs that they had cut from their previous 3 albums. So to fill in the gaps from their physical graffiti sessions, they used songs that they had cut from Houses of the Holy, from Zeppelin 4, and one song that they cut from the album before that, Led Zeppelin 3. I'm going to be covering the track listing of physical graffiti very shortly, and I'm going to be color coding song names as I sometimes do when there is a lot of shit to keep track of. The brown text will be for songs from the physical graffiti sessions, orange from Houses of the Holy, gray from Zeppelin 4, and the purple text for the song from Zeppelin 3. So, to break this down as best as I possibly can, the physical graffiti track listing was recorded at Island Studios in 1970 and 1971, Stargroves at '72, Headley Grange in '71, and Headley Grange again in '74. So to break that down for you, these are 2 additional locations across 4 separate time frames, and 2 of these locations are used twice. Whew. Anyway, the final mix of physical graffiti was done at Olympic Studios in the summer of '74. Buckle up, babes! The track listing goes as follows. Gonna need my cheat sheet for this. Side 1 opens with Custard Pie, followed by The Rover, and ends with In My Time of Dying, which is an arrangement of a blues standard. Side 2 opens with Houses of the Holy, followed by Trampled Underfoot, and concludes with the 9-minute epic Kashmir. Side 3 opens with another nearly 9-minute long epic, In the Light, followed by, apologies for my pronunciation now, Bronnerire? Oh man. Then Down by the Seaside, and side 3 closes with 10 Years Gone. Side 4 opens with Night Flight, followed by the Wanton Song. Then we have Boogie with Stu, followed by Black Country Woman, and the record concludes with Sick Again. Gotta put my jacket back together once again. Physical Graffiti was released in February of 1975, and it was Zeppelin's first release on their very own brand new record label, Swan Song Records. Like Zeppelin 3 nearly 5 years earlier, Physical Graffiti pulled massive numbers with pre-orders. However, they seem to have learned their mistake from the first time, because these pre-orders were not delayed by the complicated cover art situation. You live and you learn. Fans loved the riffs, and the critics appreciated the musical mastery happening on this thing. Rolling Stone's advanced review of Physical Graffiti stated the following: Physical Graffiti is the band's Tommy, Beggar's Banquet, and Sgt. Pepper's rolled into one. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people forget that Zeppelin used to get trashed by critics. It was so bad that they left their name off of the previous 2 releases entirely. This was their first release since 1970 to have the band's name on the jacket. For lack of a better phrasing, back then, Zeppelin got trashed just for being Zeppelin. Gee. I wonder who that reminds me of. That's not a callback to a previous Vinyl Monday episode or my most controversial blog post at all. But Physical Graffiti had a great hand in fixing things. It kept the fans happy, the critics were most of the way pleased, and the guys had something new and fun to play. Physical Graffiti produced a wildly successful tour, like sell out the stadium so hard that you have to book 2 more nights there successful. But when talking about Physical Graffiti's tour, and considering the song Sick Again is on this album, I am gonna take a little bit of time here to make a blanket statement on Zeppelin, specifically Jimmy Page, and groupies. I use air quotes because those girls were not groupies. Alright? They were 14, 15, 16, as young as 13. Those are not groupies. Those are victims. Victims of very brazen, blatant, and normalized abuse that riddled the music industry in the 1970s. Listening to all of this stuff critically, I feel a responsibility to remind people of that. Honestly, music fans are even more guilty of revisionist history than the musicians are. Anyway, those girls were not groupies. They were kids. Know the difference. Shame on those guys. Shame on the guys that let those girls into the clubs. Shame on their parents. Shame on everyone. I had to take a drink of my water because I could feel myself getting heated. I guess this is a good way to segue into my thoughts about the music on Physical Graffiti. Is this the creative peak of Led Zeppelin like Robert Plant thinks it is in retrospect? I don't necessarily think so. I think that was Zeppelin 3. There was a lot of experimentation happening on Zeppelin 3. A lot of risks were taken. Most of them landed. Hats off to Roy Harper didn't. I'm inclined to say Physical Graffiti is a peak for Led Zeppelin. This was a peak along with Zeppelin 4. They're alike in a lot of ways. On these 2 LPs, the guys felt secure enough to experiment. They're confident enough in their direction to execute what they had dreamed up. And you can tell the guys were having a lot of fun laying down this material in the studio. I completely understand people's apprehensions about physical graffiti. It is 82 minutes long. I was shitting bricks over finding the time to listen to this thing at least 4 times before sitting down to make this video for you guys. This was also one of 3 episodes I had to film in 10 days. Fuck it, we ball. And like, that apprehension is totally understandable. Double albums freak me out because those albums are prone to having a lot of duds to fill in the space. Jesus, there is riff after riff after riff on physical graffiti. Jimmy is a human riff machine. One is worn out by that intensity, that back to back to back to back by the end of this 82-minute listen. I'm worn out by how stacked this thing is. Like, you mean to tell me all of those riffs came from physical graffiti and physical graffiti alone? Side 1 is a really solid start. It was smart of the guys to put those easily digestible 3-ish minute songs, Custard Pie and The Rover, right in the beginning to ease you into what's gonna be happening later. Pack your patience for the next one, though. The Zeppelin recording of In My Time of Dying is the longest studio recorded song they ever did. No, Blind Willie isn't credited on this song, nor is Jesus Make My Die in Bed, which I have a ton of problems with. I will get into the ins and outs of Zeppelin's tricky relationship with the blues whenever I cover Zeppelin 1 on this channel. Expect that in like January, trying to fast track that one for this reason. Anyway, In My Time of Dying will reward you for your patience. After how intense that 11 minutes is, how it'll wear you down if you're not careful, I honestly think studio banter was the best way they could have possibly ended that song to sort of lift and lighten the mood a little bit. Cough. It's the breath of fresh air you need. Side 2 is probably the weakest side of the 4, just if you're asking me. 1 opens strong. We will get to my thoughts on 3 very soon. And 4, you don't expect it to flow as well as it does. 2/3 of side 2 is just kind of there, with another album's opening track. Why did they just retitle Houses of the Holy, the song, to not be on Houses of the Holy, the album, and be on Physical Graffiti, the album? Make it make sense. It is a cute nod to the previous studio album, but The Zeppelin guys would only really repeat themselves twice throughout their careers. You have Since I've Been Lovin' You off Zeppelin 3, and its descendant T for One on Presence. And you have the Page and Plant song Most High, which I love. That is my most favorite Page and Plant song. And its ancestor, Kashmir. It is the perfect song to round out the first half of a project as ambitious and supersized as Physical Graffiti. Oh my god, I almost forgot about the time signature. Or the time signatures of Kashmir. Hold on. Okay, so Zeppelin was really good at messing around with weird, funky time signatures. They did it on 4 Sticks, on Zeppelin 4. They've done it a couple other times since, but on Kashmir, things get really good. The thing that makes Kashmir so special is you have Bonzo drumming at 4/4 time, and everybody else is playing in 3/4 time. So doing some quick math in my head, apologies in advance if I get this wrong, I'm actually really, really bad at math. That means they only meet, Bonzo and everybody else, they only meet once every 12 measures. So you got a triangle and a square. It's unstable, it's Zeppelin flexing their musicianship that they've worked really hard to grow since their first record that they cut in '68. And Kashmir is an epic if there ever was one. Zeppelin was really good at transporting us into like different dimensions through music, and Kashmir absolutely does that. So I recognize this might be a slightly hot take amongst Zeppelin listeners, but Side 3 is the strongest side on Physical Graffiti. The first minute 30 of In the Light still gives me full body chills when I listen to it, which is something very few songs can do. This playing from vinyl on a stereo system is just unmatched. Between the bass line and all that wacky keys stuff, JPJ is the shining star of In the Light. Bronnerire, again, sorry, and Seaside are perfect to fill the space between In the Light and 10 Years Gone. Sometimes songs are meant to be filler, and that's okay, but they serve a purpose. They're eclectic and fun pieces to keep you engaged. Bronnerire is very obviously from Zeppelin 3, and Seaside reads as kind of a Little Houses of the Holy-ish to me, even though it's a Zeppelin 4 track. Anyway, it's very obviously not written during the Physical Graffiti sessions. They're eclectic and fun pieces to keep you engaged in between the two long ones. While they're not high points of the album by any means, they're needed to hold an engaging pace. Like, you can't just have Kashmir, In the Light, and 10 Years Gone back to back to back. You just can't do it. Speaking of side 2 going into side 3, the album is organized with intent. Those breaks in the track listing aren't super disruptive, and that just makes me so happy when listening on this format. If you're gonna have to get up and flip your disc over or swap it, you might as well want it to not break your listening pace. And on Physical Graffiti, I don't think that happens. Oh gosh, please tell me that makes sense. Not quite as good as your disc flip moment on, say, Dark Side of the Moon. I will absolutely elaborate on that when I cover Dark Side in March. Anyway, each side's closer is a real heavy hitter. 10 Years Gone is a more mature moment for Zeppelin, both lyrically and musically. Every part of this song was really thoughtfully pieced together. The way the mix sort of washes over you, it will bring you to tears. It's like the grown-up child of Thank You and What Is and Never Should Be. This record is just meant to be played loud. Nice mixing moments happening. I'm not shy about playing favorites amongst a band, both with their songs and with their men. I went through such a Jimmy Page phase in college, it's not even funny. He was my phone wallpaper for like 2 years. In the Light and 10 Years Gone are my two favorite moments on Physical Graffiti. Not my favorite Zeppelin songs. No song will ever dethrone Achilles' Last Stand, but they're really special moments on Physical Graffiti. Thesis of the video, I like the Zeppelin epics. I completely forgot about side 4. I forgot about every song on side 4 in between last listening to this album and listening to it for this video. Like, I forgot I liked Night Flight. Again, gushing over the mix, but that Pan on Wanton song cuts like a razor. I had to stop the song, pick my jaw up, collect it from my lap, and replay that because it was just so cool. Moments like that and your intentionally lower fi Boogie with Stu and Black Country Woman, they really sell the production. I like that rock and roll influence on Boogie with Stu and Black Country. It's a nice nod to the rock and roll godfathers. Man, this album's organization is smart, putting the short stuff up in front and the back and loading up the middle with your tougher, more experimental songs. It's not an instant gratification record. It makes you work for the stuff that's really worth it. This album threw the Zeppelin cookie cutter away. They got to cement themselves as a group really apt to experiment. Basically, if they could dream it, they could do it. Sure, they'd done it before with Zeppelin 3 and the wonkier moments on Zeppelin 4 and Houses of the Holy, but it's polished now on Physical Graffiti. They ironed out the Hats Off to Roy Harper kinks. I still do not like Hats Off to Roy Harper. Everything about Physical Graffiti is larger than life. It's multifaceted and it's very in your face, so get used to it. It's very maximalist too. It's everything all at once, like the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles. It was here before you, and it will be here after you. The sun is about to set on the golden age of Led Zeppelin, but right now they are in the glory days. They are riding that chariot all the way into the sun. My personal favorites off this album are Custard Pie, The Rover, Kashmir, In the Light, 10 Years Gone, and The Wanton Song. One last note before we roll into our outro. Oh my god, almost all of my favorite songs are different than when I first covered this album. Almost all of my favorites are different except for In the Light and 10 Years Gone. That is character development if you ask me. And that is it. That is Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. It is a behemoth of a record. What do you think of all of everything happening on Physical Graffiti? You should leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about the music that I love. And if you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!